into it, I'd like to say hello to everyone out there listening, and welcome to the inaugural Tech Taboo podcast, the show where we explore the dark side of technology. I'm your host, Mike Fabry, a tech enthusiast who has a deep interest in exposing unknown truths and practices by finding out the stories behind the story. Such taboo topics have always created an awkwardness whenever brought up and never really get discussed. But time is up and we need to know. That's why we have created this podcast for you, our listeners, to get down to the dark and dirty issues which only the tech leaders and experts know. I'd like to announce to everyone out there that you can follow us via Apple Podcast, Spotify, or even Twitter at The Tech Taboo. And of course, we would welcome any comments or questions our listeners wish to share. So now that's behind us. Please welcome a good friend of mine with vast experience in both early-stage startups and large-scale, long-running projects, who also self-proclaims he always chooses the right technology to get the job done. My friend, Karol Danko. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show, Karol.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be here.
Karol Danko is the CTO of the LA Prague-based digital agency Oaks Lab, which specializes in idea to MVP development. If I remember correctly, and also for our listeners to know, you started coding when you were 12, and now you're currently leading several teams of developers working mostly in full-stack JavaScript. Is that correct?
Yes, that's absolutely correct.
Great. Since we're not here to blow smoke up each other's asses, I'm only going to give one softball question throughout this podcast. Ready? Don't be nervous. It's only going to get harder from here on in.
Sure, I'm ready. I'm ready. Don't be shy to ask me hard questions. I'm ready for that.
You sure you're ready? You don't sound ready.
Okay, bring it in.
Okay, good to hear. Being an LA Prague-based agency, you've seen both sides of the pond, so tell the listeners out there, what are the differences between Czech and US developers? Give us the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's a good question. Now, first of all, let me sum up how we work. Now, we have all our development based here in Prague, or in Czech Republic, or in Central Europe, basically. That's where the majority of our people are. And our LA office is designated for sales and client meetings, basically. Now, the reason we're doing this is clear. It's financials. Don't get me wrong. We're not trying to be cheap or anything. We just think that this way kind of allows us to offer our people a much better standard of living. Personally, I believe Central Europe lies in a sweet spot where we can find really good people and offer really competitive salaries. And there's a lot of place for talent here to develop.
Excellent. So, in your opinion, should a young developer even move to Silicon Valley or stay here and perhaps develop for you?
Work for us, of course. Now, but I'll be honest. I think Silicon Valley is still kind of the place to be if you want to work for huge companies like Google, Facebook, or any of the unicorns. But having said that, I still think Europe, and especially Central Europe, can offer a better kind of salary and quality of life ratio. Yeah, but I mean, if Google calls, then you go. But other than that, I'd stay here maybe.
Yeah, but isn't that like expecting a call from NASA?
Oh, well, could be something like that. But you can also send your CV to NASA and wait. Oh, but what's interesting? All the big companies kind of lowered the entry expectations. Oh, I don't want to say lowered, but they until last year, all the big companies required a computer science degree. But last year, all of them kind of dropped this. So I think it's easier to get to Google than to NASA.
I would hope so. Okay. Anyway, since we're on the topic of recruiting and you are in the position of trying to find people, let alone being on the other side of the table sometimes, you must have come across a taboo here or there. Do any come to mind, perhaps?
Let me think of something. Oh, yeah. One taboo that few people want to talk about, but kind of is happening, is kind of interviewing just for practicing, basically, I would say. And just to keep yourself in the game. I mean, you're satisfied with your position, but you just go try out just to stay sharp, to basically keep yourself in the game.
Have you ever personally tried it yourself, let's say, or?
Uh, I, I I tried it a few times actually. Now it was always when I was satisfied in a position, but I came from the interview and kind of from the entire process with kind of know-how. Also, I saw how people were treating me on the interviews, so I was able to treat better candidates that come to me basically. And it was always a good experience for me.
All right, but as someone personally who's interested in building your own company and your team, how do you weed out real candidates from those who are just looking for information and free feedback?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's actually you don't want to weed them out because if somebody comes to an interview that they only want to practice, and you're able to show them that yeah, your company is the one to work for, that's exactly what you want. And yeah, worst case, what can happen is that you will lose an hour of your time. So I think it's worth it.
All right. In that case, do you still encourage your developers to do interviews outside the company, or you kind of frown on
Okay, so this is a taboo question, isn't it?
that? Yeah, that's why we're here.
Yeah, so I don't actively encourage them to do so. Like I don't kind of, hey, go to interview. But I do tell everyone that they should explore how other companies work. Now, to see and kind of remind them that it's good to be in our company and to have the comparison that we're really good.
Kind of sounds to me like everyone's sort of spying on everyone to see what's going on around and, see where they stand either as an individual or as the current company where they're working for. I mean, if I'm wrong, please tell our listeners what's really behind it all, you think?
Well, I think that's good, don't you think? I think that, yeah, I've seen people with huge salaries and benefits being greedy, really, because they didn't have any comparison. Now, and this is something that really kind of gets me fired up, gets me really angry that I've seen also kind of almost abused, underpaid junior developers that were treated very badly. And so I encourage all these developers just to look around because, yeah, I've seen this happen too many times. So if you're a junior developer and you see that your salary is not good, that you're treating you like shit, basically,
Yeah,
look around because there are better companies to work for.
that's good advice. Okay, not actually on the air today, we will be talking about it, but I'm sure our listeners would be interested in what you were telling me last week. And that's basically about cheaping out on development seems to be a current trend among. Yeah?
Don't get me started on that. Now, I mean, if you're a tech company, you need somebody who understands tech, right? That's kind of logical. Like, you wouldn't believe how many times we have heard the phrase, "Yeah, my cousin can do that cheaper," or "Yeah, let's hire a student for that," or something. But it ends up with a kind of insecure AWS instance without backups, without code versioning, and so on. And a lot of companies just don't realize that the tech is one of the pillars of their business, and it needs to be taken care of appropriately with appropriate budget and with people with experience.
Now, speaking of experience, you're an experienced man when it comes to startups, but honestly, not everything you touch can turn into gold. There must have been one time when you fucked up royally out there, isn't there?
Oh yeah, we kind of fuck up all the time, and the startups fuck up too. That's how it works. It's all about learn from the mistakes, basically. Let me think of kind of example because yeah, we're on a taboo podcast, so let's try it out. So yeah, I think the biggest fuck up in the last year or two was kind of we delivered an app that had a lot of bugs and was not really fit to use. Now, the main problem was that we just promised way too much, and we got really too excited about new features and kind of making it really, really awesome. Yeah, but then we had to rewrite almost the entire thing for free, of course. Now, our finance department was not too happy about that, but we were able to save our reputation, which is something that really, really matters. And yeah, you were saying about startups. I've seen startups that fucked up too, and yeah, there's a lot of time wasted not realizing what the startup wants to build, or the startup just pivots way too often. Now, with this, we're trying to help them, but there's only so much we can do.
Easy now, Carl. Don't you claim that you always choose the right technology to get the job done? Better yet, how long is this self-proclaimed track record of yours? I'm sure our listeners would be interested.
Oh yeah, looking back, I really made some good choices. Yeah, of course. I always choose the right technology. Oh no, but seriously, I know I make mistakes. I try to learn from them. Now, I remember in the past kind of fighting for my way of doing things, which kind of backfired rapidly and really massively sometimes. Like once I was fighting for kind of a unified coding standard. Now, right now we have Prettier. We have a lot of other tools that kind of do this for us. But I don't know, it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago. It was not that common. And I tried to introduce this in the company I was working for at the time. And, there was like small things like spaces versus tabs or spaces after brackets and so. And you'd be surprised how much can these things be really militant and how some people can really fight to death for spaces or tabs. And I was actually one of those people fighting to death. So basically, there we were, kind of making the code, working with legacy code base. That was, a team of 30, and we had to agree on something. Now, we agree it was pain in the ass to implement. Like, imagine 30 people, code that was living for years, and now we had to kind of unify the coding standard. It was hell. And there we were, I think a year later, everything was done. I looked back and I realized I didn't like the choices I made actually. So I made some choices in the beginning and then I was too busy fighting for them. So I didn't kind of pause to think if I made the right choices.
I see. Is there anything you would fight to the death for now, you think?
Oh, that's a really good question. Now, okay, I would say JavaScript. Now, JavaScript is everywhere. I wouldn't say I would fight to death for it because, their technologies need to be chosen to fit the need. Like, you cannot write machine learning with JavaScript. Well, you can, but it wouldn't be ideal. JavaScript is my tech of choice, and I'm really kind of militant about using it, I would say.
Okay, well, what if you come across someone who kind of laughs at JavaScript and points out that you're wasting your time? How do you react to these people?
Oh, I really like these people. Actually, I really like these discussions because you can see that after talking about, these are ideal beer discussions because you can explain why it is, why I really love JavaScript, why I love the entire ecosystem of JavaScript that currently is. A lot of times these discussions don't end with, okay, I was right, but I rather go away from them with more information about other technologies, for example.
Okay, so based on these beer-filled discussions that you've had, what's the biggest pro in favor of JavaScript and the biggest con that you've taken away from these convos?
Okay, that's a really good question. Now, I really think that the biggest pro of JavaScript is the community around it and the tools available. Because right now, a lot of people develop in JavaScript. There's a lot of libraries, a lot of tools, and it makes the development really fast and agile, which is something that we are really striving for these days. When you have a startup, you need to be out there in months, not years. Now, of course, this is also a disadvantage because, it's being said that every month there's a new JavaScript framework. And this is something that you need to be careful about. Now, I see kind of a lot of inexperienced developers choosing libraries that are not proven, basically, which means that their project cannot work for more than a year because the libraries just go away. Now, this is kind of a sharp contrast to, I'd say Java, because Java is kind of stable, slow moving. Now, Java has a kind of a mantra of corporate huge thing that only corporates can afford. Well, it's kind of true, but also other tools kind of moved.
No problem. I'm just more curious if you're talking about your opinion or the actual public opinion.
Okay, I'm rather my opinion. Maybe my opinion that I see in my circles. Now it's interesting to see that I'm always trying to get information from outside of my circles to kind of correct my worldview per se. But what I'm seeing around me is that JavaScript is the language of choice for a lot of people. Is a choice for a primary language actually, so front end and back end for a lot of companies, a lot of successful companies. Also, we chose JavaScript to be our only language that we use, and so far it's working really good, and I'm really satisfied with the choice.
So why did you make that choice?
We want to move fast, and we want to be on the edge of innovation, basically.
And you think JavaScript is the only way or the best way?
It's the best way, not the only way, the best way.
Okay, so moving on, it seems you have a problem admitting some of your shortcomings, or perhaps it's something you don't wish to make public to our listeners. But let me remind you once again why you're here, and that's to talk about taboos, Karol. Perhaps if I word my question a bit differently, we'll get out of you what exactly we're looking for. So
let's do it. Let's do it.
Okay, let's see. So out of all the tech fuck-ups you've been around, which you clearly were not part of, it seems, which of them gave you the most valuable, let's say, information or lesson?
Okay, that's really, really good question. Now, I think that my biggest tech fuck up was not connected to code at all. I think it rather was connected to what happened around, and I've learned a lot from that. Now, I was a part of a huge build with kind of great ambitions, great performance, and we thought that we were building the best code in the world, basically. But it was built in a small team, and we kind of forgot to communicate this to the rest of the company. So, and there we were after a year, or maybe it was more of development. We had awesome thing. We thought it was awesome, but nobody wanted to use it. So basically, my biggest tech fuck up was not tech at all.
Yeah, well, as they say, the best lessons are the hardest lessons. So along those lines, please share with our listeners the worst decision you have ever made, and tell us what happened as a result.
Yeah, that's really good question. Let me think about it.
Take your time.
Yeah, I'll say again that maybe the worst decisions, tech and non-tech, were always connected to kind of sticking to things too long. Yeah, I'd say like, why the hell did we stick to jQuery so long? Or why the hell? Okay, I will leave that part out.
No problem.
Cool. So why the hell did we stick to jQuery so long and stuff like that?
So all right, it's I've been going a little bit easy on you here today, actually, for these past two questions, Karol, to be honest. So strap yourself in and get ready to go back under the knife. What is the one thing that tech leaders don't want to talk about?
Oh, that sounds like a clickbait from a kind of a porn site.
It is.
Yeah. So but I really like to be open and talk about everything. But there are situations where I just can't, because it could cause harm to other people or to the project and so.
Like what? Sorry, but it's my job to be nosy.
Let me think now. An example worthy of Tech Taboo podcast. Like talking about firing people now, or letting people go. I really believe that a person that you let go should know first, and you shouldn't talk to anybody else about it before talking to the person first. And stuff like this. Stuff like this happens all the time. Well, not only firing, but you need to get the information to people that need that, and you need to be careful not to harm people on the way.
That seems fair. Okay, then let's turn it up a notch. You're still not sweating as much as we'd like. In fact, we want our listeners to hear those beads of sweats hitting the table in front of you. So if you're still good.
Yeah, I'm starting to sweat a bit, but yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Excellent. Nice glisten over there. So, what I think I want to know, and many listeners out there too, what is the one thing that tech leaders don't want the public to know about? I know that question's a bit of a stinger, isn't it?
Yeah, sure. Now, when you're talking about public, I always think about people that didn't code anything or so, and for them, it's kind of not all of them can understand that software have bugs. So sometimes we kind of have to pretend that we can make a perfect software, but nobody can do that. Not even Facebook, not even Google. Yeah, well, even NASA had bugs. Well, that led into kind of rockets exploding. But yeah,
let's try to keep it a little bit light here, shall we? Let's not remember that.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, of course, bugs are there. Perfect software doesn't exist, and sometimes we need to kind of communicate that better to non-tech people.
Great. So another question: if you could send a message to yourself in the past, as a junior developer, that is, what would it be?
Yeah, maybe not to work so much. In the first few years, I was basically working and sleeping. Well, either kind of in the office or then I came home to the computer, and I didn't put that much time to kind of rest. Now, looking back, I really think that time to rest is actually really useful. You can kind of recharge and also think long term. Think how you can get better, how you can educate yourself better. And I think it's really, really, really important for young developers to understand this.
Congratulations, you made it to the end, Karl.
Oh, yeah.
But before you take a sigh of relief, I have one last question for you. And that is, in your eyes, what's going to make the shit hit the fan in the next 5 years among the tech industry?
Okay, I think, this is something that I talk about kind of a lot with people I'm around. Now, I think that we'll see a lot of inexperienced developers join the industry, which will make the quality dip down a bit. Well, maybe not a bit, maybe more than a bit. Now, there are a lot of coding camps that can teach you to code in 6 weeks, but there won't be enough senior developers to lead these newly born developers, per se. Now, don't get me wrong, with the right attitude, anyone can learn how to code. And I've seen this happen in the past. People who didn't code in the past, they had the courage, they had the strength, and they had the kind of patience to learn how to code, and they became awesome developers. But they still need enough senior developers to kind of lead them to become good developers. And with kind of robotization of manual industries, we can see maybe tens of thousands of people trying to get the coding, but there just won't be enough mentors and seniors to coach them. So that's why I think we're kind of on the edge of next dev revolution, maybe.
So you see it could be even apocalyptic? Like, how bad are you thinking here?
Oh, well, not apocalyptic, but I think that if you will want to have your software developed, you would need to find the right people. Like the same way, okay, maybe 30 years ago, it was not that important which apple you got. But right now, you need to kind of check if there are chemicals in there or if it's kind of waxed too much or so. So I think the same way you would need to kind of weed out bad developers, because there will always be bad developers that don't follow best practices, that don't educate themselves, and that actually leads into bad code and bad products.
All right, then. I think we've grilled you enough today, Karol. I'd like to thank you for being here and willing to answer our questions, somewhat, of course. And we'd love to have you back on the show, The Tech Taboo, anytime. Is there someone out there you'd like to give a shout out to before we say goodbye?
Yeah, definitely. First of all, thank you for inviting me here. It was a pleasure to be here, and hopefully I mentioned some of the taboos that are interesting for our listeners. Now, I'd like to give a shout out to all the people at Oaks Lab, and also all the people that I had the privilege to work with that kind of helped me to form myself in the state I'm now. So shout out to all of the people that I was working with, and it was my pleasure to work in them, and also with you, of course.
Thank you very much. And of course, to all the listeners. Let's not forget
Of course,
about them.
all the listeners.
Great. Thanks again, Karol, and definitely thanks to all our listeners out there. I'm your host, Mike Fabry. We're reminding you to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or even Twitter at The Tech Taboo. Until next time, have a good one, and don't be afraid to ask those ball-breaking questions that most find taboo in the world of technology.